Hi, this is Paul. Super Bowl was Sunday, and myself and the gang on Sunday provided you with the ultimate halftime show. I got home and I edited it, and we're kind of watching the Super Bowl. I had to run some errands after church, and I got home. I said, this will be just in time for the halftime show. And there it was, the Freddie and Paul show for the halftime show. And there were no edits. T. Beckett Adams has a viral tweet going around showing how they edited Alicia Keys' notes. I'll just say that in terms of the Freddie and Paul show, Dog Bark had a big song.
You don't need no ticket.
That was unedited. That is absolutely live. Freddie had a rap.
But I will start it. I will get it going on and down. But
Charles J came in for a little bit. I gotta get Charles J's thing here. Nancy had her sermon thing, and Freddie even ended it with, you go to watch the halftime show, you gotta have a little dance
on your TV. Do you want to be like me?
So in terms of the Super Bowl, this channel has you covered, start to finish. There it was. But yet, there was drama amongst the American Christians with respect to an advertisement about Jesus. And I saw this ad and I just thought, I just know exactly what's going to happen this week because of this ad. And it did happen. Now, I thought I saw a couple of these things. John Harris, that's his last name, I think. Yeah, there it is, right down there at the bottom. He noted, I thought quite rightly, because I had the same thought, that the Green family just can't win. They do this ad on the internet and for the Super Bowl about how Jesus gets us and they're bad news, and other people are jumping in that, oh, these are Christians who are coming in to try and hoodwink you into their church. That's right. Get hoodwinked into some of this now.
You better, because Jesus Christ put me on the map, and that's a fact.
There you go. You can get hoodwinked. You can get hoodwinked into this. And then I saw on the it's always got to have the background music, but the former witch, former Dawkins right-hand man, former jihadist, all of these before and after pictures, former KKK member, former gang member, former drag queen and prostitute, former transgender, former New Age guru. Jesus doesn't just get us. He saves us. He transforms us. He restores, forgives, heals, delivers. And, I like that too. I mean, the truth is, I like them both. I was on Rick Walker's live stream today. There were some technical issues, but it should all be up on his channel. If it's a little fuzzy, it's because we had these technical issues. But I talked to him about it, and this in my Sunday points, I'll make the point that Tim Keller gets from Jonathan Edwards about the diverse excellencies of Christ. He is so demanding, people say he's unreasonable. He's so accepting, people say he's irresponsible. Now, of course, the accepting and the demanding all come through Jesus himself, come through the person. So I made this little clip of this week. I'll release my conversation with Guy Landau. I see Chad beat me to the punch, having Guy on the channel, releasing it first. There you go, Chad. I'm totally good with it. Totally good with it. And he has this little diagram which I thought was so helpful.
Life, and so I'm going to build a hierarchical structure. So let's say something happens. Let's say your son got married. You're engaged in that, right? You're interested.
Yep.
Okay, but you're obviously interested, right? Because the degree of separation here is very small. Like it's very relevant to you in an immediate way.
Yeah.
Okay, now it might be something more distant. Maybe the his wife's sister, something happened there. Now he's still going to be interested, but less so. And then if I tell you John Levkowitz just had a child, you don't really care about that, right?
Don't know who
Okay.
he is. No, right.
Exactly. Yeah, I just made it up. But what happens if something that's completely foreign to you, how do you get something that's completely foreign to you? If something that's completely foreign to you engages you, for example, you watch Better Call Saul, right? And you don't know any of these people. They're fictional characters. But there's something there that engages you, right? So what I would posit is that the further away it is, the deeper in terms of your internal mechanisms you have to go in order for it to be relevant. So
Yes.
actually being engaged in something that's on the surface completely foreign is a sign that is...
Now, this is a good way to understand and to sort of negotiate what's going on in this evangelical space, because they're sort of fighting over models. There's one way of getting at this, the foot washing, of loving your neighbors. They have, there's one way of getting at this as sort of like a model. And Jesus is nice to blank. And then you think about, well, what exactly? You might want to press in a little bit. And what exactly do you think? People who are outcasts. It was very interesting, Melissa Dougherty's response to this.
Is that Jesus was religious. He was a practicing Jew, but he wasn't just a human. He claimed to be God in the flesh, the Lamb of God, the Son of God, who took away the sins of the world. Now, this is just one part of this website. This is just one section I'm going to go over. But I have to say, I think this is a little manipulative, and I hate to say it, it's brilliant because
So it's so funny because, of course, some people seeing this as oh, no, it's the bait and switch. They're going to be bringing people into church, and before you know it, when they're into church, they'll be seeing stuff like this. They'll be singing songs. They'll be listening to sermons.
What is this all about?
What is this all about, Nancy? I should do some branding from this one. This one was chock full of some stuff. You have Freddie looking at his mom, wondering how long this thing's gonna go on. It's gonna go on a while. I didn't mind the hourglass. Poor Rick is. We're not sort of pressing Rick into having to tape these anymore, so I'm giving him a little bit more time. And of course, Dog Bark had some nice harmonica music that Nancy's enjoying. So I mean, we're just, gosh, don't let him in church. Oh, this one. No, this one. I feel like Grim Grizz here.
makes me doing this commentary sound like a Pharisee. It makes me sound like the closed-minded Christian holding to dead traditions. It poisons the well so that whenever anybody says anything against what looks like virtuous language, what looks like something that seems loving and inclusive, then you are made to look like the bad guy.
It was very interesting too because, of course, once I clicked on one of these things, whole bunches of them came up. This one. He Gets Us campaign with Ed Stetzer. Ed Stetzer's explaining how, we got this money. This is good conservative money. We got it from good conservative Hobby Lobby people. And so this is pre-evangelism, and I'm going to explain it to you. And it's really good because it'll get people to click on the website. And once people click on the website, then they'll get more information. And then we can, Jesus loves louder. Jesus experiences and again, diverse excellencies, keep that in mind. And then models versus persons. Because Jesus in the stories, and this is why the stories are more foundational, Jesus in the stories, a wealthy young man comes to see Jesus and says to him, "How can I inherit eternal life?" And Jesus says, "Well, didn't Moses tell you what to do?" And he says, "All these things I've done since my youth." And Jesus says, "Go sell all you have and follow me." This is the model. And usually part of the difficulty with these stories is we turn them into models. And you can't help but do that because you want to somehow distill the principle and the application. And that's a perfectly legitimate thing. I do it every week. There'll be somebody in this that says, "You need to talk more about Jesus." And then when I talk about Jesus, "You're not talking about Jesus right." Oh, okay. If you want to hear me talk about Jesus, go to the church channel. You can watch me talking about Jesus, Jesus, all over the place. Paul is hiding his theology. You go to the church channel. You just watch thousands of hours of PVK talking about Jesus and doing theology. Go right ahead. I invite you to. So the difficulty is, of course, that we're sort of projecting these models out into the world. And what are our expectations of these models? Well, I don't know. So this little thing about Alicia Keys' quickly updated, edited Super Bowl, a little stumble at the at one of those early notes there, and then Google fixes it up, and he sort of complains that, well, this is, we're memory holing this stuff. We're no longer having a common culture. It was also very interesting watching some of the other Super Bowl ads, the Tina Fey Super Bowl ad, which had all the 30 Rock people, and then there was the Parks and Rec Super Bowl ad. It's just very interesting how for so many people, the prolificity these shows, this is, again, right down Grim Grizz's strike zone here, these are your friends. These are your family. No, these are people on a screen that have become your friends and family. Is that a bad thing altogether? No, probably not. But you better keep in mind some of the layers that are connecting some of these things. Christianity Today, another little thing, YouTube pulled me up, tiny little channel. It seemed like a very nice pastor and his wife were. Probably some of you are watching it, which is why Algo sent it to me. Fewer Americans see pastors as ethical, and here we have this crisis of pastor reputational. Nurses are 78%, clergy are 32%. Now, clergy, very generic. Members of Congress, 6%. If you think America's in trouble because only 32%, have high ethical standards, it's in real trouble because members of Congress only are believed to be 6%, and yet we're fighting over them all the time. One of the things I brought up with Rick today was that Jesus does a very interesting thing with reputation. And in the Sermon on the Mount, he's got all of those tensions. On one hand, you do not put your light under a bushel. Let your light shine before men. And then do not do your acts of righteousness before men to see. And you see Jesus living that out. Jesus had, among many people in his culture war, a terrible reputation. Just listen to the things that are in the Gospels that Jesus' critics said of him. He eats with sinners. So that's one that, he gets us. That's the one that they sort of major in. Or Jesus is powered by the prince of demons because that's how he's casting out demons. So Jesus is demon possessed. Wow, there's a reputational thing that you don't want to have on you. Jesus is soft on the Roman oppression. So Jesus is one of these winsome people who is sitting outside the culture war and not really saying the hard thing about Roman oppression like he should be doing. Jesus is soft on the wobbly performance of common Jewish people in the Galilee. That's eating with sinners. So, and then Jesus goes and says to his disciples things like against divorce. And his disciples are like, who should marry? And Jesus says stuff about, you know, if your eye causes you to sin, gouge it out. And people are like, what kind of crazy talk is this? Diverse excellencies. And when Jesus applied them to individuals, and we still have complaints about that, to the Syrophoenician woman, I could still pull sermons on the internet about how I don't really know if Jesus is sufficiently anti-racist because look what he said to that woman. Jesus isn't sufficiently pro-woman because look what he said to that woman. Jesus plays an interesting game with respect to reputation and basically says, if your reputation is great all over, that might not be such a great thing. If your reputation is bad all over, that might not be such a great thing. Models. And so, of course, the one thing Jesus does manage to do is alienate sufficient parties who are antagonistic towards themselves in the first century Judean culture war that he manages to unite a coalition of those who are against the Roman occupation and those who are for the Roman occupation to kill Jesus. And Pontius Pilate, being the corrupt middle political person that he is, washes his hands, even though he knows he hasn't really done anything that deserves doing this. Well, that tells us that Roman justice is bad. But then you read the book of Acts and discover that actually Paul of Tarsus gets saved by the Roman troops in Jerusalem, occupying them. And what are we to think of all of that? Caught a very interesting little thing on
story. You'll only see
little thing on Boston local news, how of course we've got these immigrants come up and a Haitian family shares a story of finding a home. Some woman in Boston actually brings this husband and wife and child, I believe, into her home, and the woman likes to cook. She wants to start a restaurant, so makes a comment about how it's almost like having my personal chef, and then oh, look, it's slavery all over again. It's like, oh, internet, just take one thing and reframe it, and off we go. The thing that struck me, the frame that struck me, was they're speaking Spanish to this family, so they must have spent at least some time in the Dominican Republic because their accent sounded so much like so many of the people that I worked with for all of those years in the Dominican Republic, and it warmed my little heart. Models and individuals. She takes these people into their home. Should she take them into her home? Is that encouraging illegal immigration? I don't know. Personalism is obviously a big thing in this little corner, because part of what makes the strangeness of this little corner work is that we've just got all of these very contradictory models that are clashing against each other. And maybe the way to make it work, I don't know. One of the things that I love about, of course, Dave comes to the Freddie and Paul show, and Dave loves his old style gospel folk music, and he brings his harmonica and
Have pity on those whose chances grow slimmer, 'cause there's no hiding place from the kingdom's throne.
And Freddie's kind of waiting his turn. Freddie's got his rap to do.
Dude, you see, Purdy throwing TD passes to McCarthy, looking at Kittle, and he got to start thee. Thou art so fine, that's all I say. Yo, brothers, you better pray. I walk.
Gotta be careful with it. And Charles J has his.
These pastors preach by God, Jesus, and the Lord as I.
And here we are, ending it with a little dance from Freddie. with my long theological nose, couldn't I just sort of reach in and try and use my models to correct all these things? Yes. Does that mean Phlebas pointed to a Justin Brierley tweet where he's quoting C.S. Lewis when an RAF flyer with the RAF was talking about sort of poo-pooing these theological models, and Lewis makes an excellent point against them. All of these things have their place. What makes Jesus outstanding and the way we ought to live up to him as we go through our life is because when you go down the street, you don't meet a model. You meet a person. And the models are good. The models are fine. But you got to treat the people one at a time. So you treat them one at a time, and they're going to have this shortcoming and that shortcoming. They're going to see this thing wrong and that thing right, at least according to you, or maybe according to me, or maybe according to God, or sometimes they're just plain wrong. But the crazy thing is, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love not your neighbor's model, but love your neighbor as yourself, which means, yeah, models will come into it. We can't live without models. And so often we're dealing with these people on the screen, but yeah, behind the people on the screen are real live people with their own stories, with their own hearts, with their own opinions, with their own politics, with their own ideas. Love your neighbor as yourself. Figure out how to do it. Leave a comment.